and snap your fingers, then you lean back. All out of state, on the day they never seen that. Ain't back, throw and snap your fingers, then you lean back.
Hello and welcome to Viti Vibes TV, your one and only show for the youth and the Fijian youth. If you'd like to be a part of the show, please call us or let us know. I'm your host, Pranay Sharma. We are broadcasting from the unceded territories of the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Silvertooth and Squamish nations. Moving on, the month of May is Physiotherapy Awareness Month. Physiotherapists work on your body and release body pain. Please use them as needed. May 14th is Mother's Day. Take your time to appreciate them and tell them how much they're loved and how much they mean to you. Mother's Day should not be just one day, but it should always be every single day. No show is complete without our support from our sponsors, so if you'd like to sponsor this show or any other show that we bring to you on a weekly basis, please call us at the numbers in our credits. We'll take a short break for our sponsors' messages. If you'd like to be a sponsor of our show again, please call us at the number at the end of our credits.
I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated.
For any kind of visa-related services, contact Milky Way Immigration, a galaxy of opportunities located at Unit 209-9547 152 Street, Surrey, BC. They have licensed immigration consultants, placement officers, and LMIA experts to meet your immigration and recruitment needs. Book one-time free consultation either on Facebook or by calling 604-396-0005. Bollywood Banquet Hall and Conference Center, located at Pyle Business Center at 201-8166 128th Street in Surrey. No celebration is too small to accommodate you. They have newly renovated 2 halls to serve you, up to 1,000 guest capacity, top-notch chefs to delight you with delectable and heavenly cuisine. So just call Bollywood Banquet Hall at 604-598-2700 for your events.
Venisi Mobile Detailing Services. They offer commercial trucks, cars, SUV, boats, bikes, RVs, and much more. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859 and they will do all kind of services at your home.
Thank you, sponsors. Now, let's have a look with our director, Shannon Pramal.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Viti Vibes TV. I'm your director and host, Shannon Pramal. Thanks again for sticking around with us yet another week. You can watch all new episodes on Thursdays at 10 p.m. and Sundays at 4:30 p.m. only on the Shaw Multicultural channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a cool event that's coming up here locally. But again, like we always say, this is a show that's by youth, for youth. And some of these events, I feel like we need to start showing up to more, getting connected with the community. And that's exactly what we're here for today. We have some amazing guests here also joining me. But today we're joined by some amazing people. They're working actually to bring the community together. That's on May 13th to observe the 144th anniversary of the arrival of indentured laborers. And that's to Fiji. And that happened back in 1879. This observance is known as Girmit Day. But before we talk more in depth about what this day is, let's first meet our special guests for today. So today I'm actually joined by Angeline Prakash and Milan Singh. So if you ladies don't mind introducing yourselves to our audience.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shannon. Thank you so much for having us here today to talk about this. My name is Angeline Prakash, and I am the creator and co-host of No Ties 1879 podcast.
Awesome. And were you going to keep going?
Nope.
Awesome. My name is Milan Singh, and I'm one of the organizers for Ginmitia Day for this year, and have been connecting with Ange. And just in general, I do a lot of community work and also host a podcast called The Nameless Collective.
Nice. So you both are very much into like the whole finding your identity and like researching about our history and our culture as well. And I applaud you both for that and your teams. But before we talk more about like the stuff that's coming up this weekend, can we talk a little bit more about your guys' collective organizations and podcasts a little bit more? So first off, I want to start off with you, Ange, the No Ties 1879 podcast. Could you
Mhm.
explain a little bit more about it? What was the inspo behind it and what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a few years ago, or in 2020 to be specific, I was, it was a moment of reflection, a moment of a time of reflection for a lot of folks during that, initial period of 2020. We're all rethinking things. The very unfortunate but very public murder of George Floyd really sparked a lot of racial uprising, not just in America but globally, and it sort of really made me reflect as well. And seeing the momentum of the Black Lives Matter movement certainly inspired myself to look into myself, look inward, and do some research into my background as well, along with my brother. And so, this movement starts happening, and we start, asking ourselves, where do we fit into all of this? Because we know we feel the same way. We feel similarly to the Black community in that we know that there are so many injustices that people of color have experienced, since the beginning of time. And so we were really driven by that. And so we really credit the Black community and the Black Lives Matter movement in really being a huge driver and impetus to starting No Ties 1879. And so, my brother and I, we just kind of started doing some research into looking into, not just our ancestry and background, but how is that connected to how we are now, asking ourselves those questions of like, why are we like this? Essentially, when we think about the generational issues that have really transcended, right? We talk about, there's so much beauty in the culture, but there's also the trauma that has been passed down. And, it shows up in ways in today's generation. We see that, but we haven't really talked about anything for, the past 3 or 4 generations. And so we've essentially been left to our own devices with no explanation, or even that empowerment or encouragement to kind of try to go and figure it out. And so, the more we started digging into our Gidimitia ancestors and Gidimit the system, we started to realize that there was more to it. There was more to the reasons that we were the way that we are, that are more complex and not just as simple as, you're a wayward kid just having a hard time. And so we started doing this research. We started having these really, really amazing conversations amongst one another, my brother and I, and we were like, what would happen if we just recorded this and put this out there in the world? Because I think what we're doing is kind of valuable here. We're reconnecting as well, and working on our own relationship as brother and sister, but we're also finding out all this really, really important stuff. And we feel like we must not only be the only ones. There's no way that it's just us who feels this way. And so we feel like it might be valuable to put this out there. We struggled a lot for months on what to call the podcast. There was a huge feeling of a disconnect to not only the land that we come from, but the land that our ancestors were also removed from, and also the current land that we are on right now. We as it relates to where we are, we grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood where we did not really feel a lot of connection to the people there, and nor did they to us. And there was a lot of challenges in explaining our identity because we also didn't really know who we were either. And then, when we go back to Fiji, just thinking about, the constant, racial struggles that are still experienced today, and the historical coups that led to so many of those Indo-Fijians coming here to the Lower Mainland. There's a certain disconnect that is felt to Fiji as well, and then of course with India, like that's twice removed. We feel like we really have no connection there other than the ancestry that we know is from there, and not even knowing exactly where we're from. And so we landed on No Ties just because we just felt like we had no ties to any of this. And then the 1879 was because we really, really wanted to draw attention to the year that the first ship carrying indentured laborers landed in Fiji. That was really, really important to us because it's not that long ago. And we just really wanted to highlight that and raise awareness to that. And so No Ties 1879 is about a podcast about two Fijian folks who grew up in a white neighborhood. And we, talk about our racial experiences or, the negative experiences that we've experienced growing up in a white neighborhood. And then we also, talk about the things that we've uncovered about the system, about our ancestors. And then we talk to other folks in the community as well, like Millen, on, their experiences, uncovering their identity and, how their upbringing was like here growing up in a twice removed diaspora with, a challenging identity that was, that's kind of hard to explain to a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think you definitely hit the nail on like navigating our identity as Indo-Fijians. It's been a challenge that a lot of us go through. And on top of that, us being born here, now we have the challenge of being Indo-Fijian Canadians. And right. I think that's something you definitely brought up that I know a lot of people will relate to. But Milan, I know you also do your fair share of research and digging in archives. So could you share a little bit more about that?
Totally, thanks. And the question that you're asking, I really resonate with what Ange was saying, because for me, I started doing this work over a decade ago, and what I was finding was there wasn't an entry point into really looking at our family history, but also looking at Indo-Fijian history in Canada in like a really robust way. So, my background is a researcher, and I have spent a lot of time in the archives, so a bit of a dork on this front. But there was two things that really kind of sparked and stood out for me when I started doing this work. One was I was really lucky about maybe 13 years ago to interview Dr. Bridge Lau, and he had done his PhD. I mean, he's seminal when it comes to this work, not only in Australia and New Zealand and in Canada, but I was really lucky to interview him actually about the Komagata Maroon. And so that ship had come in 1914 and was denied entry in Canada based on racist regulations. But throughout his dissertation and through his work, he was connecting the Komagata Maroon to like this idea of identity and immigration in general. And it was really fascinating to me because at that time, in the 1970s and 80s, when we have, that first wave of Indo-Fijians here doing research, we weren't sort of like, in my head, I wasn't really grasping what they were trying to put down for us, right? That they were trying to actually create entryways into this work for us so we can explore this in a robust way. So we can put our families in the archives and in literature and in novels and in research in ways that we actually belong, not just amongst ourselves in a community, but where we can actually belong in academia and in a larger society where who we are actually matters. And so that really sparked something for me. And it really triggered me wanting to look deeper into the research around this. And then a couple other things happened. So one was with my own podcast with the Nameless Collective, we're looking at a lot of Canadian Punjabi history. And there was this one little small newspaper clip that I'm hoping I get people excited about. And in 1905, they had voyages from Canada to Fiji. And the more I dug and the more I looked into this, the more fascinated I got. And I brought on my sister Anita and we were doing some of this research together. And it turns out in 1908 was the first time that people, they would have called themselves Hindustanis at the time, but people of South Asian descent, people from India that had been in Fiji had tried to come to Canada and were denied entry. And this all of a sudden put me on this sort of vision of what would have our trajectory as Indo-Fijians looked like had they been allowed in 1908. And the history for me then just continues. One of the special episodes in the Nameless Collective podcast focuses on this issue in particular. So for those who are interested, Shannon, I can share this with you to really sort of dive into what that would have looked like and what sort of immigration policies were around in order for our community to not only thrive at where we are now, but kind of restrict us in the beginning as well. And then there's also, other histories that I won't get into now connected to Fiji sugar and how the sugar companies and part of being Fiji being so close to like one of the colonies and how that connected in the middle of like Ginmitia and Girmit, you're also having this connection back to Canada that was really remarkable. And then the other piece that really kind of got me into doing this work was, of course, my own family trajectory and just thinking, you know, I was fine pulling up stats. Like I was looking at in StatsCan, and in the 1960s, in the mid 1960s, there was literally only 300 people registered as Indo-Fijian in the country, and I was like, one of those people was my mama, you know. And from there, it just sort of created this trajectory into doing this research more, which I'm more than happy to get into if we have some space.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. And I'm very glad that there's people out there, and people should know that they are able to access these as well. But let's kind of move towards the conversation about Girmitia Day. So it's the 144th anniversary of the arrival of indentured laborers. So Girmitia, for those that don't know, is essentially what's known as indentured laborers. It's a name given to Indians who left India in the middle of the late 19th century to serve as laborers in the British colonies. And the majority ended up settling in Fiji just because they weren't able to go back to their motherland. Girmit is a form of weighing the English word agreement. Correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially that's what that is. So you guys are planning an event soon related to that as well. But first, before we talk about the event, I want to kind of ask you guys, what do you think is why is it so significant to observe this day?
Good question. I think that the answer to that is probably, you know, a little different for everyone, but it is essentially our Remembrance Day. You know, it's important for us to, you know, observe, recognize, and acknowledge this day because it's the day that, you know, the trajectory of our, you know, ancestors, their lives, and, you know, our lives changed, you know. And it wasn't something that was necessarily voluntary. It wasn't something that was, you know, transparent. They essentially were manipulated and didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And, you know, when we think about, you know, why this system came to be and how it was essentially in reaction to the abolition of the American slave trade, you know, and we start to, you know, see a lot of those parallels. I mean, you know, I remember, you know, when I was younger and not even making the connections until I was an adult, where my mommy was telling me stories about how her grandma told her that, you know, they'd be working in fields and, you know, the white man would come on a horse with the chabuk, with the whip, and whip them and make them work in the sugarcane fields. And, you know, when you kind of process that, you hear it, but you don't necessarily process that. And then, you know, you grow older and you know, learn, you know, in school, you learn about all the other ways in which humans were sold and trafficked throughout history. And you start to draw these parallels, you know, you realize the way in which, you know, and your ancestors were victimized. And, you know, for me, I know that there's this sort of deeply internalized sadness almost that I feel when I hear these stories, because, you know, of course, I didn't necessarily directly know my great grandparents who were indentured laborers. But, you know, to hear those firsthand accounts from family members, and they're not just stories that you hear from other individuals or in the media or, you know, in books that you study from, like these are, you know, this is your family telling you these things. There's like this strange and powerful amount of pain that I feel like I really felt. But then also this interesting sense of responsibility and empowerment to do something about it. I feel lucky and grateful that I am in a place where I can raise awareness about something like this and speak on it. in a free way, in a way where I know that I am not going to, face any kind of, consequences or political repercussions or anything like that, because I know that my parents, had to flee and came
Yeah.
here in 87. And when you hear about when I meet other Fijians, and they talk about coming here in 87, there's almost like this kindredness that is felt with them because of how significant that time was and how significant that coup was. And so for me, I feel like I feel accountable and responsible to recognize this day, because I never want the history to be forgotten.
No,
I want us to know, and I want the wider public to know.
No, and that's great. And like you said too, like these feelings that we have, even though we might not directly know these are our family that did go through it, it still isn't that far along or that long ago that this all had happened. Because even for me, it was like my great grandparents or my great great grandparents. But yeah, just we're running a little bit out of time, but I just want to quickly get on to your guys' event, this unique event that you're hosting. It's your second annual Gurmitia Day event. Milan, do you care to share what will be happening and the details for this event?
Totally. So we're really excited that we're having the second event. The first one was last year, of course, and we tried to keep it quite small. But this year we wanted to expand it and really just invite people in, and that was the goal. It was to try to see this as a way of conversation and build community. And so Gurmitia Day, it's going to be held on Saturday, May 13th, between 1:30 and 4:30 in Surrey at Clayton Community Centre. And the goal really is to bring in a range of speakers. So we have an important recognition from Semiahmoo First Nation, as well as the Viti Cultural Association. So we can recognize the impact on Indigenous peoples, not only here, but also in Fiji. We're then bringing in some artists. We're bringing in first-time speakers. And so we're bringing in a poet, a couple poets and spoken word artists. We're also bringing in people who want to talk about the complexity of identity and what that means to them as being, Tamil and being Indo-Fijian and being Canadian and like living in this space. And then we're bringing in folks who have really tried to do this work for a little bit of time. And we're bringing in a performance, bringing in performers and to do a musical component to it, and also a book reading. So I'm not naming names because I want everyone to come in and take a look at the program and to see what we'll be doing in order to honor our history and really think through the traditions of our ancestors. So you'll notice that a lot of the pieces are through music, and they'll also be through spoken word. And for me, that's really important because the oral traditions of our ancestors, right? And that component of Bhojpuri Hindi that we would hear, and to hear Fiji Hindi in a space, and to also keep space for those who are attending to meet one another. So we are hoping, we've kept space in the beginning and at the end for a bit of mixing and mingling, because we are expecting, our families to connect with one another as well, so we can bring community. So I hope people are interested. You can go to our Eventbrite page, Gurmitia Day on Eventbrite, and we'll send that link to you as well. The tickets are free. We want this to be as accessible as possible, and we've kept like a really short but tight and wonderful program for you, so you can just come and be with us with community and be with us in that space. And again, we're recognizing elders and young people and just everyone in between in a small and hopefully meaningful and connected way for you.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. If anyone would like to contact any of you for any more info, how could they do so?
I can be reached just through Instagram. Feel free to DM me at NoTies1879 podcast. You can also email us at noties1879@gmail.com.
And Milan?
Same thing. We're running the program through No Ties 1879. And so we're just streamlining it there so it's easy access. And if there's anyone who reaches out or if young people reach out, we're also kind of doing the calls. So if elders in our community want to jump on a call just to learn more, I'm more than happy to call them, and I'll do my best to speak in Fiji Hindi and connect with them as well, since Instagram sometimes isn't as accessible.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both so much for this. Like they said, their event will be happening this Saturday. That's May 13th from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the Clayton Community Center in Surrey. So be sure to be there. It's free of cost, so there's no excuse as to why you shouldn't be there. But yes, to connect with the community members and to also be in the presence of many others, definitely be there. We will also be there as well, our Viti Vibes team. But with that being said, thank you both ladies so much for joining me today. I know this time just flew by and we could continue to talk about this forever, but that's more the reason why people should go to this event, so we can talk more about this and really dive deep into our culture and history and community. But with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in again, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you. Remember, this is your show, and if you're a youth and you'd like to come on the show and showcase yourself or tell us what you're dealing with in your day-to-day life, come on over and we'd love to hear from you. Here are a couple of events that you might be willing to attend, so please have your pens and papers ready. No Ties 1879 and the Indo-Fijian Cultural Society is hosting a Girmitia Day, which is being held on May 13th from 1:30 till 4:30 at the Clayton Community Center at 7155 187 8th Street in Surrey. Tickets you can get from eventbrite.com. Canada Empowered Women of Fiji Foundation is hosting their annual Mother's Day family event. This event is fundraising for the BC Cancer Foundation. Tickets are $40 and kids under 10 are pretty much free. For more information and how to purchase tickets, please contact Anita Reddy at 604-825-8261 or call 604-831-0240. Moving on. The Cultural Union 2023 will be taking place at the Katri Hall in Ba, Fiji Islands on July 29th and July 30th. Please get your tickets, and for more information, go on the Khalsa College Reunion page on Facebook. Food drive and fundraising in aid of Nilesh Chandra is taking place as medical treatment in India. This is taking place on May 13th from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. Cost is only $10 per serving, halal chicken, pulao, and tomato chutney. For more information, call Nilesh Chandra at 604-720-5754 or Suman Prakash at 604-618-4600. We ran out of time for today's show, but I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I love bringing it to you. If you had missed our show today, you can always watch it on Sundays at 4:30 p.m. in BC and at 5:30 in Alberta time. No show is complete without our support, so please sponsor our shows. If you want to know more and how to do this and how to support the youth talk show, talk to Camila at 604-537-5123. And please don't forget to watch Fijian Focus on Tuesdays at 10 p.m., Thursdays at 2:30, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Asian Pulse TV, Wednesdays at 2:30 p.m., Thursdays at 8:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 5:30 p.m., as well as the Camila Singh Talk Show, Mondays at 10 a.m., and the repeats on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. All our shows are uploaded to YouTube, and please like and share. Before I leave, I'll leave you guys with these thoughts. In the long run, we get no more than we have been willing to risk giving. By Sheldon Keop. With that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. I'm your host, Pranay Sharma, and I'm signing off. Happy Mother's Day to all of you from the team at Viti Vibes TV.
Ain't fat, double shot your fingers, then you lean back. All out of state, going to get that, never seen that. Ain't fat, double shot your